The Wandering Wyvern, in the emerald canopy of the Whisperwood, where sunlight dripped like golden honey, lived Anya, a young elf with hair the colour of twilight and eyes that mirrored the summer sky. Unlike her kin, content with weaving tapestries of light and tending to moon blooms, Anya yearned for adventure. She devoured ancient scrolls filled with tales of dragons and forgotten kingdoms, their whispers fueling a restlessness in her spirit. One crisp autumn eve, as the wind sang secrets through the leaves, Anya stumbled upon a hidden grotto. Inside, pulsating with an ethereal glow, was a sapphire amulet. As she reached for it, an inscription on the wall flared to life. "Whosoever holds the Whisperwood stone shall unlock the forgotten gate." Anya's heart hammered. This was it, the key to an adventure beyond her wildest dreams. But the inscription continued, a chilling warning. Beware, for the gate leads not only to wonder, but to shadows older than time. Driven by a thirst for discovery that eclipsed her fear, Anya slipped on the amulet. The forest floor trembled, and a swirling vortex of emerald light erupted from the stone. With a gasp, Anya was thrown into the unknown. She landed hard on cold stone. Disoriented, she found herself in a cavern unlike any she'd seen in the Whisperwood. Jagged obsidian pillars clawed at the ceiling, and an unsettling silence hung heavy in the air. Then, a guttural growl echoed through the chamber, and a hulking creature with eyes like smouldering embers emerged from the shadows. Anya's heart pounded, but the amulet pulsed with a warm light, urging her forward. With a newfound courage fueled by both fear and excitement, Anya took a step towards the creature, ready to face whatever this new world held. This is just the beginning. Anya's adventure has only just begun. Where will the Whisperwood stone take her? What dangers and wonders await her beyond the forgotten gate? The story is yours to continue. The hulking creature, a monstrous reptilian beast with scales like polished obsidian, lumbered closer. Anya, her hand instinctively flying to the pulsing amulet around her neck, braced herself. But before the beast could attack, a booming voice filled the cavern. "Halt, Draken. This young one is under my protection." The creature, Draken, flinched, its fiery eyes darting towards the source of the voice. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and cloaked in shimmering silver robes that seemed to catch the faint luminescence emanating from the cavern walls. A long white beard cascaded down his chest, and his face, etched with age lines, held a pair of eyes that twinkled like distant stars. "Who dares interfere with my hunt?" Draken rumbled, its voice a low growl that trembled through the cavern. The old man, a gentle smile playing on his lips, raised a hand. "Peace, Draken. I sense something special in this young elf. Perhaps she is not prey, but one destined for a greater purpose." Anya stared, wide-eyed. Was this a wizard, a powerful being from the ancient stories she devoured? "Anya," the old man turned to her, his voice warm and calming. "Do not fear. I am Eldarian, guardian of this forgotten place." He gestured towards the swirling emerald portal in the distance, now shimmering faintly. "The Whisperwood stone led you here, but for what reason? I cannot yet say." Intrigued and relieved, Anya introduced herself and explained how the amulet had brought her through the forgotten gate. Eldarian listened intently. "The stone chooses its bearer carefully," he mused, stroking his beard. "There is a prophecy whispered among my kind of a young one from the Whisperwood who would arrive with a key to unlock a great evil. Could it be?" He trailed off, his gaze fixed on the amulet. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and the swirling emerald portal pulsed with renewed vigor. A chilling aura crept through the cavern, making the hair on Anya's arms stand on end. Draken, usually fearless, whimpered and retreated into the shadows. "It seems our time is short," Eldarian said, his expression grave. "The prophecy may come to pass sooner than we anticipated. The gate is weakening, and the shadows stir." He looked at Anya, his eyes filled with a flicker of hope. "Young one, perhaps you are the key not just to unlocking the gate, but to sealing it shut. But for that, you will need to learn more about this place and the power the amulet holds." This turn of events was overwhelming, but a spark of determination ignited within Anya. Fear was replaced by a growing sense of purpose. In this strange new world, she wasn't just an elf yearning for adventure. She might be the only one who could stop a great evil from consuming everything. "I'm in," Anya declared, her voice ringing with newfound resolve. Eldarion smiled, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. Then let us begin your training, Anya of the Whisperwood. The fate of this world may very well depend on it. Eldarion led Anya through a labyrinth of tunnels carved into the obsidian rock. The air grew colder and staler the deeper they ventured, and an unsettling silence pressed down on them, broken only by the occasional drip of water or the skittering of unseen creatures. Finally, they emerged into a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in inky darkness. An ethereal glow emanated from bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls, casting an eerie green light on the chamber. In the center stood a monolithic structure, a swirling vortex of energy contained within a ring of ancient, rune-carved stone. "This is the font of Ian," Eldarion explained, his voice echoing in the cavern. "It is the heart of this place, the source of all magic." He motioned towards the swirling vortex. "The forgotten gate lies just beyond, held in place by the font's power. But the barrier weakens, and the shadows that lurk beyond grow restless." Anya approached the font, mesmerized by the mesmerizing dance of energy. She could feel a faint tingle on her skin, a pull towards the vortex. In her mind, she saw fleeting images, monstrous creatures with glowing eyes, sprawling wastelands shrouded in perpetual twilight. She recoiled, a gasp escaping her lips. "Visions," Eldarion said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "The Whisperwood stone is attuning you to the world beyond the gate. A world corrupted by an ancient evil known as the Shadow King." A shiver ran down Anya's spine. The Shadow King sounded like something out of her darkest nightmares. Eldarion continued, his voice laced with urgency. "The prophecy foretold that the bearer of the stone would not just unlock the gate, but also possess the power to wield the font's energy and seal it shut. But wielding such power requires training." Eldarion spent the next few days tutoring Anya in the forgotten arts of his people. He taught her how to focus her will, to channel the ambient magic that pulsed through the caverns. Anya, a quick learner fueled by determination, surprised even Eldarion with her progress. She learned to cast shimmering shields of energy, to create bursts of light that danced at her fingertips. One evening, as they sat by a crackling fire Eldarion had conjured, Anya confided her doubts. "What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail?" Eldarion looked at her, his gaze steady. "The prophecy chose you, Anya. It saw the potential within you. But prophecy is not absolute. It is a path, not a guarantee. In the end, it is your will, your courage that will determine your success." His words ignited a renewed sense of purpose within Anya. She would not fail. She would not let the shadows consume this world or her own. With newfound resolve, she continued her training, pushing herself to her limits. Days turned into weeks, and Anya grew stronger, more confident in her abilities. She began to have dreams, vivid visions of the world beyond the gate, a world where forests were choked by thorny vines, where sparkling rivers ran black with corruption. But within the darkness, she also saw flickers of hope, pockets of resistance, hidden sanctuaries where beings of light fought to preserve what remained. Anya knew she was not alone in this fight. There were others who believed, who were waiting for a champion to rise against the shadows. One day, as Anya practiced channeling the font's energy, the ground began to tremble. Eldarion rushed in, his face etched with worrying. "The time has come, Anya. The gate weakens further, and the Shadow King stirs." Anya took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked at Eldarion, a question hanging in the air. He simply nodded. The fate of this world rested on her shoulders. It was time to face the shadows. Anya gripped the hilt of the dagger Eldarion had gifted her, its enchanted silver gleaming faintly in the flickering light. Her weeks of training had honed her reflexes, strengthened her connection to the font's energy, but facing the nightmarish beings of her visions filled her with a cold dread. Eldarion placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch surprisingly strong for his age. "Remember, Anya," he said, his voice grave, "you are not just a warrior. You are the bridge between worlds, the wielder of the font's power. Use it wisely." With a heavy heart, Anya followed Eldarion through the labyrinthine tunnels, the air thickening with anticipation. They emerged into the vast cavern where the font of Ian pulsed with an ominous green glow. The swirling vortex within the rune-carved ring had intensified, tendrils of inky darkness reaching out from its edges, clawing at the barrier. A guttural roar echoed through the chamber, shaking the very stones beneath their feet. From the inky depths of the vortex emerged a monstrous creature, its form a grotesque amalgamation of obsidian claws, glowing red eyes, and shadowy wings that scraped against the cavern ceiling. It was a shadow spawn, a harbinger of the Shadow King's dominion. Eldarion raised his staff, its tip crackling with arcane energy. "Go, Anya, distract the creature while I attempt to reseal the gate." Anya charged forward, the dagger flashing in her hand. The shadow spawn screeched, its razor-sharp claws tearing through the air. Anya rolled to avoid its attack, the echo of Eldarion's words ringing in her ears. "Use it wisely." Focusing her will, Anya reached out to the front, feeling a surge of energy course through her. With a flick of her wrist, she sent a bolt of shimmering light towards the creature. It struck the shadow spawn's chest, searing a mark that sizzled and smoked. The beast roared in fury, momentarily distracted. Anya darted forward, weaving between the creature's flailing limbs. She knew brute force wouldn't win this fight. She needed to exploit the shadow spawn's connection to the gate. Focusing again, Anya visualized the font's energy not as a weapon, but as a scalpel. She channeled a precise beam of light, aiming for the tendrils of darkness reaching from the vortex. One by one, they severed, shrieking as they were cut free from the font's energy. The shadow spawn faltered, its form flickering as its connection to the gate weakened. Eldarion seized the opportunity, chanting in an ancient tongue. The runes on the stone ring flared brightly, and the vortex began to shrink, the tendrils of darkness recording into its depths. Anya poured all her remaining energy into severing the final tendrils. The shadow spawn let out a deafening shriek as it was ripped free from the weakening gate. With a final roar, it dissolved into a cloud of dark mist that dissipated into the inky void. Exhausted, Anya stumbled back, gasping for breath. She looked towards Eldarion, who stood panting beside the now still font, its green glow dimmed but steady. "We did it," Eldarion rasped, a smile creasing his aged face. Relief washed over Anya, a wave that threatened to drown her. They had sealed the gate, at least for now. But as they stood there, catching their breath, a flicker of movement at the edge of the cavern caught Anya's eye. A lone figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in darkness, its features obscured. A cold dread seeped into Anya's bones. This wasn't over. The Shadow King wouldn't give up so easily. The figure spoke, its voice a chilling rasp that echoed through the cavern. "You may have sealed the gate this time, child of light, but the shadows will return. And when they do, they will be stronger." With a final, bone-chilling laugh, the figure vanished back into the darkness. Anya exchanged a worried glance with Eldarion. The fight for this world had just begun. She may have closed the gate, but the war against the shadows was far from over. Anya, the young elf from the Whisperwood, was no longer just an adventurer seeking excitement. She was a beacon of hope, the protector of this world, and she knew her journey had only just begun. The weight of the prophecy settled heavily on Anya's shoulders. Eldarion, though relieved for the temporary reprieve, looked older, wearier. The cavern that had once felt like a refuge now echoed with a newfound urgency. "We must warn the others," Eldarion said, his voice raspy. The prophecy spoke of scattered pockets of resistance. "We need to find them, to unite against the coming darkness." Anya, despite her exhaustion, felt a surge of determination. Fear remained, a cold ember in her gut, but it was overshadowed by a newfound sense of purpose. She wouldn't just react, she would act. "Where do we start?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady. Eldarion gestured towards a dusty map etched onto the cavern wall. It depicted a sprawling network of tunnels, branching out in all directions. "There are legends," he rasped, tracing a finger along a barely discernible path, "of an ancient citadel hidden deep within the obsidian spine. A mountain range notorious for its treacherous paths and unforgiving inhabitants. Legends also say the citadel houses the Oculus of Ian," Anya added, recalling a fragment of forgotten lore she'd devoured in her youth. An artifact said to hold the combined knowledge of the ancients, perhaps even the key to defeating the Shadow King permanently. A flicker of hope ignited in Eldarion's eyes. "Then that is where we must go, Anya. It's a perilous journey, fraught with danger, but our only hope." Thus began their odyssey. Leaving the font of Ian behind, They ventured into the labyrinthine tunnels, Eldarion relying on his fading memories and Anya's newfound connection to the ambient magic to navigate. Days bled into weeks, the darkness punctuated only by the occasional bioluminescent fungi and the rhythmic drip of water. They faced monstrous creatures, twisted by the encroaching shadows, their forms a grotesque mockery of life. Anya, her skills honed by Eldarion's tutelage, wielded her dagger and Aethhel's energy with growing confidence. Eldarion, frail but ever resilient, offered guidance and support, his knowledge of ancient lore proving invaluable. One particularly harrowing encounter left them stranded on a narrow ledge, a raging chasm yawning below. Just as despair threatened to consume them, a faint, ethereal melody drifted on the wind. Following the sound, they stumbled upon a hidden grotto, bathed in an otherworldly luminescence. Within sat a cloaked figure, playing a harp crafted from what seemed like moonlight itself. The figure, an ethereal being known as a lumen sage, welcomed them with a gentle smile. Having sensed their struggle and their purpose, they offered passage, a hidden path through the obsidian spine, known only to their kind. The journey was arduous, a perilous climb through treacherous ice falls and across wine-battered plateaus. But with the lumen sage's guidance and their own unwavering resolve, they persevered. Finally, after weeks of relentless travel, they emerged onto a vast plateau bathed in an ethereal glow. Before them stood the fabled obsidian citadel, a magnificent fortress carved from the very mountain itself. But as they approached, a sense of foreboding washed over them. The once gleaming obsidian was marred by creeping shadows, and monstrous creatures patrolled the ramparts, their eyes glowing with an unnatural red light. Anya and Eldarion exchanged a grim look. The Shadow King's influence had reached even this remote location. The fight for the Oculus of Ien and the fate of the world was about to begin. The imposing obsidian gates of the citadel loomed before Anya and Eldarion. The once majestic fortress now emanated a chilling aura, corrupted by the encroaching shadows. Grotesque creatures patrolled the ramparts, their red eyes glinting with malice. Anya gripped the hilt of her dagger, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm. Weeks of relentless travel had tested her limits, but the thought of the Oculus of Ien and the potential to vanquish the Shadow King forever fueled her resolve. Eldarion, his face etched with concern, studied the fortifications. A direct assault is foolhardy, he rasped, his voice strained. We need to find a way inside, undetected. Anya, her senses heightened by the font's energy, scanned the perimeter. A narrow ledge, barely visible against the obsidian facade, snaked its way precariously up the side of the citadel. It was a treacherous climb, one wrong step meaning a plunge into the unforgiving abyss below. There, she pointed, her voice barely a whisper. We can use that ledge to bypass the main gate. Eldarion's eyes widened. A perilous climb, even for an elf, but perhaps our only option. With a determined nod, Anya began the ascent. The wind howled around her, threatening to tear her from the slick surface. Focusing on each handhold, each precarious step, she inched her way upwards. Below, Eldarion, his frail form dwarfed by the sheer scale of the citadel, cast shimmering shields to protect her from the occasional rock or projectile hurled by the watchful creatures. The climb seemed to take an eternity, but finally, Anya reached a narrow opening, a hidden service entrance long overgrown with vines. Taking a deep breath, she squeezed through the opening, finding herself in a dusty corridor thick with cobwebs. Inside the citadel, an unsettling silence reigned. The air hung heavy with a sense of decay and neglect. Anya cautiously led the way, Eldarion close behind, his staff crackling with a faint, protective light. They navigated a labyrinth of deserted corridors, their footsteps echoing eerily in the emptiness. Suddenly, a guttural growl shattered the silence. A hulking creature, its body a grotesque fusion of obsidian and shadow, emerged from a side passage. Its eyes, burning with malevolent hunger, locked onto Anya. Eldarion shoved her aside, his voice raspy with urgency. Run, Anya, find the Oculus, I'll hold it off. A wave of despair threatened to engulf Anya, but the memory of the Lumen Sage's words echoed in her mind. The fate of the world rests on your shoulders. With a surge of determination, she steeled herself and sprinted deeper into the citadel, the creature's enraged roars echoing behind her. With a determined nod, Anya began the ascent. The wind howled around her, threatening to tear her from the slick surface. Focusing on each handhold, each precarious step, she inched her way upwards. Below, Eldarion, his frail form dwarfed by the sheer scale of the citadel, cast shimmering shields to protect her from the occasional rock or projectile hurled by the watchful creatures. The climb seemed to take an eternity, but finally, Anya reached a narrow opening, a hidden service entrance long overgrown with vines. Taking a deep breath, she squeezed through the opening, finding herself in a dusty corridor thick with cobwebs. Inside the citadel, an unsettling silence reigned. The air hung heavy with a sense of decay and neglect. Anya cautiously led the way, Eldarion close behind, his staff crackling with a faint, protective light. They navigated a labyrinth of deserted corridors, their footsteps echoing eerily in the emptiness. Suddenly, a guttural growl shattered the silence. A hulking creature, its body a grotesque fusion of obsidian and shadow, emerged from a side passage. Its eyes, burning with malevolent hunger, locked onto Anya. Eldarion shoved her aside, his voice raspy with urgency. "Run, Anya. Find the oculus. I'll hold it off." A wave of despair threatened to engulf Anya, but the memory of the Lumen sage's words echoed in her mind. The fate of the world rests on your shoulders. With a surge of determination, she steeled herself and sprinted deeper into the citadel, the creature's enraged roars echoing behind her. Anya had no idea where the oculus was located, but her connection to the farm's energy thrummed with a faint guidance. Following this intuition, she navigated a maze of twisting corridors and deserted chambers, the oppressive silence broken only by the pounding of her own heart. Finally, she stumbled upon a massive chamber bathed in an ethereal glow. In the center, atop a pedestal of polished obsidian, pulsed a magnificent crystal orb, the oculus of Ian. Relief washed over Anya, a bittersweet sensation tinged with the whirring for Eldarion's fate. As she reached for the oculus, the chamber doors slammed shut with a bone-jarring thud. A chilling laugh filled the air, and a shadowy figure materialized before her, the Shadow King himself. His form, a writhing mass of darkness, pulsed with an otherworldly power. "So, the little elf who dares defy me has finally arrived," he rasped, his voice a chorus of whispers. "But the oculus will be mine, and with it, I will engulf this world in eternal darkness." Anya stood her ground, gripping the hilt of her dagger tighter. She may have been outmatched, but she wouldn't give up without a fight. The fate of the world depended on her. This was the moment the prophecy had foretold. Taking a deep breath, Anya steeled herself. The battle for the oculus, and the very soul of the world, was about to begin. Dread coiled in Anya's stomach as the Shadow King loomed before her, his formless body crackling with dark energy. But a spark of defiance ignited within her. She wouldn't let fear paralyze her. Eldarion's sacrifice fueled her resolve. She had to protect the oculus, for it was their only hope.